words. So Kevin, thank you for being here. Thank you for having the table. Thank you for your sponsorship.
So I was sitting here this evening and I was looking around the room and I was thinking, you know, after 29 years in battlefield preservation and interpretation, has it really just come down to this? I mean, this is the room I'm in tonight. Opening for Gary Adelman. That's how it's all ended up. All jokes aside, I was asked by Steve not too long ago. He said, "Listen, we're looking for somebody that, you know, carries a good bit of weight in battlefield preservation and somebody that really is a true historian. And in case we can't find that person, would you mind?" No, all jokes aside, this is quite a milestone. 25 years is a very long time, quarter of a century, and it's not been an easy road to hoe for this all-volunteer organization. I mean, 25 years ago, gas was $1.28 in January of that year. I think the #1 song was a pop/country crossover song by Faith Hill, "Breathe." Some of you might remember that song. That was the #1 song. I think the biggest news item that year was the election. If you remember, it was a hotly contested election. It came down to the Supreme Court deciding who was going to be president of the United States. And all of that was right on the heels of Y2K, when we thought that everything was going to come grinding to a halt. And 25 years ago, when they were trying to figure out how to preserve this 300-plus acre piece of battleground just south of Winchester, Virginia, we had no idea that we were going to be facing 9/11. We had no idea we were going to be facing a pandemic and several wars across the world. And through all of that, over the last 25 years, the Kernstown Battlefield Association has persevered. And it has not been an easy time in the nation when it comes to American memory. You know, as we got further along in those 25 years and our nation struggled with its past and struggled with how it wanted to remember its past, KBA continued to persevere until we come to tonight. And tonight we can celebrate KBA, the Kernstown Battlefield Association, as one of the strongest, one of the most successful battlefield preservation organizations in the country. We need to give you a round of applause. There are so many grassroots battlefield preservation organizations that have sprung up all over the country that have come and gone, that posted maybe 1 or 2 wins on the board. Maybe they saved a piece of property, got it under conservation easement, but there are just a handful. There's just a handful that have stuck in there year in and year out, day in and day out, project after project, to not only preserve the property, but to restore the property, and to open the property, and to lovingly care for the property. And there is no battlefield organization in the Shenandoah Valley that does that better than KBA. KBA is the organization that the Shenandoah Valley Battlefields Foundation constantly holds up whenever we're talking to federal officials, state officials, local partners. We constantly hold KBA up as the perfect example, the quintessential example of the type of unbelievable, again, grassroots efforts that really get the job done. And they are the prime example of a community group, a community-minded, a community action, a community-centric battlefield preservation organization, the type that we need at every battlefield. And thank God we have that at Kernstown. Again, you've heard it over and over. 3 battles fought there. Countless soldiers marched past there. Robust agricultural history, and it's all preserved and protected and growing because of the efforts of the people in this room, some of whom are the founders of this organization. You know, a lot's changed, and it's changed pretty quickly. I think if you take a second and think about what you were taught in school, there's a good bit of what we were taught in school that's really not applicable today. I actually was taught to cut and paste. You know, you actually cut out piece of what you had written and pasted. Remember doing that? Anybody else remember that? And I had a typing class. I wasn't allowed to get my driver's license until my uncle taught me how to drive a stick shift. You know, these are things that really are not extremely applicable today. We were laughing in our office not too long ago, sometime over the last couple of weeks, that we had seen a meme somewhere where they said that, you know, as much as they talked about stop, drop, and roll when I was in school, I would have expected to be on fire a lot more by now. The Mr. Young stickers and all of these things that were a part of our life, the telephone cords that reached from here all the way to the back of the room, none of which have any bearing on our lives today. But the lessons that are taught on battlefields, the things that are forever entombed in that earth, held in that soil, the lessons that can be taught walking the ground at Kernstown are timeless. Those are the timeless lessons about self-sacrifice and patriotism and just how important our republic is. And pretty apropos this evening, just how violent keeping that republic together as one people can sometimes be. The lessons that we can teach on a battlefield are timeless, forever lessons. And those lessons are becoming more important, not less important, as time goes by. So I'll just leave you with this, and that is a reminder to all of you that have worked so hard for the Kernstown Battlefield Association and the Kernstown Battlefield, and for the memories of the men who fought there and the men and women who called that place home, the people who lived through that horrible, horrible time. I would just remind you that saving the battlefield is a means to an end, not the end. The end is saving our nation because you saved the lessons that can be taught on the battlefield that you protected. I heard it said one time, many years ago, that it doesn't matter why people come to church as long as they hear the sermon. And we in battlefield preservation today, over the last decade, I would say, have been very, very cognizant of the fact that we want to get people on the ground, boots on the ground. We don't care if they're coming to have a track meet. We don't care if they're coming to walk their dogs. We don't care if they're coming to push a baby stroller, as long as they come to the battlefield. Doesn't matter why they come to church as long as they hear the sermon. I'm going to push back on that a little bit. In this day and age, I think it's time to realize that we need to get them in the door. But let's not let anyone forget that this is hallowed ground. Congratulations, KBA. Good night.